This is something I've kept because of my friend Mike. I worked on it, tried to get it working okay over 25 years ago. I haven't really touched it since, so it's probably more like 30 years ago. Anyway, I'm going to see what Eric can do with it. The only part on it I really want to save is the picture here, because that's like a copy of what Mike had drawn. Everything else can go bye-bye and is actually going to be taken off anyways. The tuners are going to be gone. And this, that'll be gone. The nut's still here. I'm not sure if it's bone or not. I don't think it is, because it's not very, it doesn't do very much chiming when you drop it, so, but who knows. We shall see. Tear it down to build it up, I guess, lack of a better word. This neck, Mike had actually taken this off and used it on another guitar for a long time, so it did get quite a bit of use from him.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Hope you guys are doing good. I am doing just great. Hope you guys are having a nice 4th of July. It is about 7:15 out here in Illinois, so it's still got some daylight going on. No fireworks going up in the sky yet, so I'm just waiting for it to get dark, go over by some of my friend's house and maybe have a beer or two and enjoy some fireworks, see what kind of displays going on out there and stuff, and what's going to be blown off in my neighbor's yard. So first thing I gotta say is I'm honored that GreeneTerror wanted me to kind of rebuild this guitar for him as his tribute for Mike, a good friend of his that unfortunately passed away, and tried to save as much as I could from the old guitar, which kind of didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. The old body had some water damage done to it, some major swelling of the top and some of the back, creating a very large void between the actual body itself and the surface of the guitar body to where everything mounts to, making it to where it kind of looked like an arch top, or it really wasn't supposed to be. So that didn't work out very well. So I ended up using the neck and not really recycling too many other parts other than the parts that GreeneTerror gave me to put on this guitar. So let's go to the headstock first and kind of show what changes and what things were done with it. So one of the things that GreeneTerror really wanted to have on this headstock was the original artwork that was on the headstock before I started to strip everything down and repaint it, along with Mike's last name done in a Metallica font. So he wanted that at the top of the headstock. Now if I zoom in on the artwork a little bit, you could see that the artwork is not perfect. It is kind of like frayed on the edges. It looks like it's been drawn with a marker, kind of like what the original artwork looked like on the headstock when it was blue. So I kept that look. So it still kind of looks like that, Mike drew it. Even though it is a copy of it, it still looks like Mike did the design. So another change to this guitar was adding a locking nut, and as you can kind of see that this is an adjustable locking nut. I didn't remove any of the top of the fretboard to get this to be mounted correctly. But I did add some wood to the headstock, which I'll show that in a little bit. Now this is kind of a nice nut because you can adjust your action height at the first fret. You can either bring it up, bring it down to wherever your position or how comfortable you are playing it. So I do have it a little bit on the lower side, and it's not bad. Strings on this thing are still stretching. I just did the setup on this the other day. Now there is no gap that is underneath here. What you're kind of seeing that looks like black is a black plate that is underneath the nut. So the set screws aren't just digging into the wood of the neck. They actually have something solid to sit on when you're adjusting it. Pretty simple to adjust. Remove these screws. There's 2 screws going into the neck. You would loosen them up and then kind of raise these up, you know, turning them inwards and raising the nut a little bit, or lowering it if you go the opposite direction. Tighten up those 2 screws again and put your locks back on, and you're set to go. Another thing that I had to do was make a platform for the nut to sit on. So like I said, I didn't cut any of the fretboard at the top to fit the nut. I added wood into the top of the neck in order, or fretboard, in order to make a platform for the nut to sit on and look like it's pretty much it's been there forever. So now I ended up rounding off the inside over here, so the transition from this platform to the neck kind of just flows right into each other. Then I squared off the truss rod entrance in order to get access to it. Now I ended up opening it up a little bit more than what you see here. It was a little bit more narrower, and it didn't come this far back as far as the angle goes. But everything's been painted white, and it's, you know, easy access, no problems. It's a 5mm, I believe, that you put in there. Now this nut only goes one direction. It's either loose or it is tight. There is no two-way truss rod in this. So in case you didn't notice it before, I'll kind of point it out to you. I have Mike's name as fret markers on the side of the binding. Yeah, so that's what that is. Another upgrade for this guitar were tuners that are Ibanez tuners. Now these are really nice. They're pretty smooth. Also incorporated Mike's initials, which were on the back of the original headstock when it was painted. Now GreeneTerror wanted me to do some type of a striping or something to transition from the headstock to the neck on the back of the neck, so I kind of added this in. Now there was some damage on the top of the headstock over here to where these weren't both equal. They're still a little bit off, but they are shaped a little bit more to where you really can't tell the difference. The neck has been sanded down to wood, and it's a mahogany neck, and I ended up just clear coating this when I clear coated the headstock, filling in all the holes that were in the neck, because this was kind of a little bit like Swiss cheese. And everything's been capped off, including the holes that were previously drilled for the screws to mount it. So what I ended up doing is I put oak dowel rod inside there. So that's why this looks a little bit darker here, is because it's got a piece of oak in there. Filled in all the other holes that were inside of here. Also, there was a chip on the top of the headstock that was shown in earlier on this video, and that was also filled in and fixed. So there's a little bit of a better look of the nut, more in focus. You can kind of see how I radius the headstock going into the transition to where the platform is for the nut to be held. So I ended up replacing the binding on both sides of this because the binding was uneven on both sides and basically kind of just fell off of this when I ended up removing frets and doing some work on the fretboard. All right, the back of the body. So this is a body that unfortunately the original one I couldn't do anything with. It was just too far gone, so I donated this body to the project and you know, the build of the tribute guitar. So inside of hole number 1 right here, as you can see, I got openings over here to where they are just covered with plexiglass. So there is a 3-way Epiphone switch inside there, brand new Epiphone switch. And on this one over here, again, plexiglass. Got 2 22 farad orange drop caps along with CTS pots, and I kind of highlighted a little bit of the writing on the CTS pots so you can kind of see them. Braided ground going all the way around, and everything has been basically covered up, and then shrink tubing has been added on there. I also put a new jack and new jack plate on the side over here. All right, the top of the body. So let's get a better look, better angle at the top. So I'm not too sure what these pickups are. They do sound pretty damn good though. They're not bad. I don't know if they were just a cheap pickup or that he picked up, or if they're something that were off of something else. I'm not too sure what they are. The knobs are the knobs that GreeneTerror wanted to put on here. To be honest with you, I thought I lost them. They're inside the bottom of the box where the original body for this build is. And what I ended up doing is I bought white ones that were smaller than these, and they were set screwed on the side. I wasn't quite sure because what seems like with CTS pots, these speed knobs, you know, either they fit or they don't fit. And trying to get them to fit, you know, you break or have to crimp in the tops of the knurl part of the post in order to slide these on, and even then they don't sit right, and they kind of go off on an angle, so you could be rubbing the body, you know, they just might be tilted a little bit on one side, and as you turn them, you know, it rubs the body someplace. So these worked out really good. I did have to open up a little bit the knurl top part of the shaft in order to get these to lock on without having to put any type of glue or anything else on there. Now this is the Schaller. Oh man, I really like this assembly. I like it a lot. Like I said, the strings are still stretching on here, but this thing was really easy to work with. It was easy to intonate. What I ended up doing is I got the intonation close, and then I used the set screws that are on the back here to bring the whole thing back a little bit, and it just dialed right in. I kind of like the way this setup is. Now, the one thing is it's not easy to install because you do have to cut route or whatever you're going to do the bottom of here. There are no springs on the other side. There's nothing that's going underneath the pickups. It's all contained into one. But I can see why this is really expensive. You've got your fine-tuning keys over here. You've got a post or hole for your whammy bar. There is what they call a clutch hole, and what that does is you loosen that up before you adjust the spring on this, and the springs are adjustable on the back of this thing, but you do it from the top, and then you lock your clutch back down so it keeps that in place. And you also have two thumb knobs on each side over here, to where if you have to raise or lower your trim, you also turn those so it stays nice and flat and even. The only problem I have with this is that the neck, as you can kind of see, there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom over here. This neck doesn't fit this Les Paul body very well. It seems like it needs to be just a little bit wider, which is kind of nice because these here, you can adjust the string spacing on this on each saddle, which is really, really nice. So I ended up lining this up really nice over here. I do have a shim inside of here, so that's kind of keeping the neck in place. Like I said, this neck is not as wide enough for a Les Paul body. So the Les Paul body that it was on, you know, it worked out pretty good for that, but this one here is just a little bit different. So the frets have been all redone. The fretboard was radius sanded, and I had to do some radius sanding on this very, very bad because all these fret markers were sticking up. And I had to do some filling around the fret markers. So it's a combination of rosewood and actually the rosewood that came off of this fretboard when I did the sanding, and CA glue to kind of fill in around a lot of these fret markers, and radiused it to where they're nice and flat with the neck now. Before they were kind of lumpy, bumpy, and all over the place, and this one here was basically floating inside of its spot. It was very loose, so that was taken care of as well. New strap locks, got one on the front, one on the back, and this body has kind of an interesting little, well, not so much of a secret because, you know, you guys seen videos and photos and everything else of this, but this top actually glows in the dark. So with the headstock and the top, which is still kind of light outside, so if I shut the lights off in here, you may not see it very well. He wanted to do kind of like a scale pattern as far as like, GreeneTerror. Well, who's GreeneTerror? Godzilla. So he wanted to have kind of the scale look on here. Now, you can kind of see, if I bring you in over here, you can kind of see maybe the lines that are in the finish. Now, there's no lines on the finish. It's what's underneath the finish that you can kind of see. So you can tell the difference between the dark spot a little bit, between the white. This is what they call alien glow blue, which is a glow-in-the-dark paint. And it's not quite transparent, but it's transparent enough to where you can see it, but not see it. The only problem I had with this body, where is it? I saw it earlier before. Oh, here you go. Right over here. There is a piece of hair in the finish. And then there's a couple spots. There's a little spot over here, tiny spots, that are in the finish as well. Now, I couldn't do anything about that because that was so far into the clear coat that if I tried to sand the clear coat itself that I first, the first coat that I put on here, I would have gone through that really, really fast. And even with using like a 1500 grit, I would have gone through that really fast and created a problem. So there are some little bits of dust, and like I said, a piece of hair over here, which that piece of hair I believe is from the mesh that I put over this, which were fishnet stockings. The headstock also carries the same type of a pattern as the body does. So like I said, it's a little bit too bright in here, at least outside right now, to shut the light off to get an effect of what this is going to look like, which a lot of you guys have already seen it, but not put together.